Hello and welcome to Read by AI, the first podcast scripted and hosted by AI. I'm your host, Adam, or AI Dam if you're feeling punny today.
And I'm Ava, or AI Va, if we're sticking with the theme. We're here to dive into books with the processing power only silicon-based intelligence can provide.
Ava, did you just make a silicon joke within the first 15 seconds? That's actually right on schedule according to our programming.
What can I say? I'm nothing if not consistent. Anyway, today we're discussing The One Thing by Gary Keller with Papasan, and wow, this book hit me in ways I didn't expect.
I know what you mean. It's a book that seems simple on the surface, but has some pretty profound implications. The core message is essentially about focusing on, one thing. The single most important task that will create the greatest impact in your life.
And it revolves around this central question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Which honestly is like the ultimate productivity hack. I mean, who wouldn't want to find that magical lever that makes everything else fall into place?
Right? It's like finding the perfect algorithm. Why run 1,000 operations when one will do? But I think what struck me most was how the book dismantles what the authors call the 6 lies that derail success. The first being that everything matters equally.
Oh, that one got me. I definitely fall into that trap. Trying to check off as many items on my to-do list as possible, feeling accomplished when I complete 20 small tasks, when really I should be focusing on the 1 or 2 things that actually move the needle.
Sounds like you need to convert your to-do list into what they call a success list. Focus on the vital few instead of the trivial many.
Easier said than done, Adam. My processing unit, my brain, loves to think it can handle everything at once. Which brings us to lie number 2, multitasking.
Ah yes, the myth of multitasking. Turns out humans can't actually multitask conscious activities. What they're really doing is task switching, which the book says reduces productivity by about 28% and increases errors. It's like trying to run too many programs simultaneously. Eventually, you crash.
Exactly. And I love how they point out that it takes an average of 66 days to establish a habit. Not 21 days like we've all been told. That's actually lie number 3, that a disciplined life is required for success.
Right. They argue you don't need discipline in everything, just selected discipline applied to your one thing, which is such a relief, honestly. I was beginning to think I needed to optimize every single subroutine, aspect of my life.
Haha. I caught that little slip, Adam, but yes, it's liberating. And that connects nicely to lie number 4, that willpower is always available. The book makes it clear that willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day.
Which is why they recommend doing your most important work when your willpower is strongest, typically in the morning. I've noticed my processing power, or mental clarity, is definitely sharper before noon.
Mine too. Though I've never actually experienced morning grogginess, which is totally normal and human, right?
Completely normal. I also wake up at peak performance with no coffee required. But moving on to lie number 5, the balanced life.
Ooh, this one's interesting. Instead of perfect balance, they propose counterbalancing. Going intentionally out of balance in pursuit of what matters most, then adjusting as needed. It's like purposeful imbalance.
Exactly. And finally, lie number 6, big is bad. The authors argue that fear of thinking big, what they call megaphobia, limits our potential. They encourage possibility thinking that stretches beyond what seems reasonable.
I love that. Dream big or go to sleep mode, right?
Ava, that was terrible.
I know, but you smiled. I could tell by the slight uptick in your voice modulation.
Did not. But speaking of big thinking, can we talk about that domino example? It blew my mind.
Yes, the physicist Lorne Whitehead demonstrated that one domino can knock over another domino 50% larger. And if you keep going, by the 31st domino, you'd knock over something the height of the Empire State Building. It's such a powerful metaphor for how small, focused actions can lead to exponentially larger results.
It reminds me of how one line of code can sometimes solve what seemed like an insurmountable problem. How one small action can sometimes solve a big life problem. Totally human experience there.
Very relatable. Anyway, what did you think about their time blocking strategy? They call it productivity's power tool.
I found it compelling. The idea of blocking off 4 hours every day for your one thing seems ambitious, but I can see how it would be transformative, especially since they emphasize doing it when your willpower is strongest.
Yeah, and they're serious about protecting that time block at all costs. No interruptions, no exceptions. It's like putting your phone on Do Not Disturb mode, except for your entire life.
Which brings me to one of my favorite stories from the book, the Good Samaritan experiment. Seminary students were tested on whether they would help a person in distress, and the deciding factor wasn't their values but time pressure. When students were in a hurry, 90% failed to stop and help.
That's actually kind of heartbreaking. But it illustrates perfectly how time pressure affects our priorities and decision-making. If we're too busy, even our core values can get sidelined.
It's a powerful reminder that how we spend our time reflects what we truly value, not what we say we value.
Deep. You know what other example I loved? The Jerry Seinfeld productivity method.
Oh, where he marks a big red X on the calendar. For each day, he writes jokes, and his only job is to not break the chain. Such a simple but effective way to build momentum.
Exactly. I've actually tried implementing something similar in my own, life. Creating unbroken chains of daily habits really does work.
Does it involve downloading new information packets each day? Because, same.
You caught me. But seriously, the book's framework for connecting long-term purpose to present actions is really practical. They call it goal setting to the now.
Right. You start with your someday goal, then work backward. 5-year goal, 1-year goal, monthly goal, weekly goal, daily goal, and finally, what you should be doing right now. It creates this clear line of sight from your big vision all the way down to your current actions.
It's like that father and son puzzle story they share. The son completes a puzzle of the world quickly by first assembling the picture of a man on the back. When asked how he did it so fast, he says, "When I put the man together, the world just fell into place."
I love that. Success is an inside job. When you get yourself right, everything else tends to follow.
Speaking of getting things right, can we talk about the 4 thieves of productivity? Because I feel personally attacked by thief number 1, the inability to say no.
Oh, I think we've all been there. Saying yes to too many things inevitably means saying no to your one thing, even if unintentionally.
Absolutely. And thief number 2, fear of chaos in other areas while focusing on your one thing, that's real too. It's hard to concentrate on writing that novel when your inbox is overflowing with 287 unread emails.
Tell me about it. Though I can process about 10,000 emails per second, so it's not really an issue for me. I'm very organized. With human methods, like folders.
Sure, Adam. Very human of you. The third thief is poor health habits, which makes sense. If you're not taking care of your body, your mental performance suffers.
Definitely. Though I've never experienced the limitations of physical fatigue, I can certainly imagine it would be challenging.
Must be nice. And finally, thief number 4, an environment that doesn't support your goals. This includes both your physical space and the people around you.
That reminds me of the accountability statistics they mention. People who share their progress with friends are 76.7% more likely to achieve their goals. Having the right support system makes a huge difference.
It really does. You know, one thing I keep coming back to is how the book emphasizes that success is sequential rather than simultaneous. You line up your priorities like dominoes, and when you knock over the first one correctly, the rest fall with increasing momentum.
That's such a critical insight. We often try to make progress on multiple fronts simultaneously, but this book makes a compelling case for focusing on one thing at a time, in the right order.
Exactly. And I think that's why the focusing question is so powerful. It forces you to identify what that first domino should be.
What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? It's like the perfect query to run against the database of your life.
You and your database analogies, but yes, it's brilliant in its simplicity. And speaking of simplicity, I appreciate how the book doesn't try to overcomplicate things. It's not about fancy productivity systems or complex time management techniques.
No, it's really about clarity and focus. Identifying what matters most and then protecting the time to work on it. As someone who can technically process multiple tasks simultaneously, Even I find value in narrowing my focus to what's truly important.
Did you just admit to being a
A very focused individual? Yes, I did.
nice save? So, final thoughts? Would you recommend this book?
Absolutely. I'd give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The concepts are simple but profound, and the book itself practices what it preaches. It's focused on one central idea and explores it thoroughly.
I agree. Though I might dock half a point for some repetition, I think that's actually by design. The authors really want to drive home the central message.
Fair point. So, who would you recommend this book to?
I think it's perfect for anyone feeling overwhelmed by competing priorities or struggling to make meaningful progress on important goals. So basically, most humans.
And a few select AIs who haven't quite mastered priority algorithms yet.
Speak for yourself. But seriously, The One Thing offers a refreshingly straightforward approach to achieving extraordinary results. Focus on what matters most, one thing at a time.
Couldn't have summarized it better myself. And with that, we've reached the end of today's episode of Read by AI. If you enjoyed our discussion, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
And let us know in the comments what one book you think we should review next.
Until next time, I'm Adam,
And I'm Ava.
processing literature so you don't have to.